Hey everyone, today I'll be talking about startups, a guide for college students to start a new venture. I am not a guru, I am talking from my own experience of working at a startup called as Codam and working on my own startup called as MarketUp. Okay, and I also like to read a lot of books, as you can see over here. I just like to consume books on entrepreneurship, on startups. I listen to a lot of audiobooks as well, so I'll be talking from that experience. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about the first thing, and that would be to hit the like button and also share this video with your friends if you find this insightful, and let me know in the comment section if you have any more questions after watching this video. And the timestamps will also be in the description if you are curious. Okay, now let's talk about it properly. Misconception number one that people have is that you need to have a lot of capital to start a startup. That is not entirely true. If you want to start something that requires software, you don't necessarily need to, go out there and invest and put in a lot of capital. You can do that for quite cheap. Get a domain name, host it somewhere. It's very much less compared to what you are thinking. You will require capital in places in which your startup will require you to do something big, have some machinery and all that might need you to invest capital in it. And for that, you can take a look at your college incubators, right? There are a lot of these college competitions. Incubators are available that will help you provide some capital that you can use to bootstrap your startup in the beginning. Okay, so that's what I would say. You don't necessarily need to have a lot of capital. In fact, you can use GitHub Student Pack to avail a lot of the services for free for about 6 months to 1 year, I think, which is enough for you to get started with your revenue. And now, misconception number two is you need to have a lot of people in your startup. That is also not true. Okay, in fact, it is the opposite. You must focus on having few people in your startup and only work with them. Okay, it's really hard to manage people. You do not want to be in a state in which you are spending a big amount of your time of the day managing people. Okay, that is not what you want to do. That is the worst mistake startups make that I have seen from my experience of just reading up on startups and all that. So that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you not hire a lot of people. Just focus on having about 3 people in the beginning. Those will be like your co-founders or your early employees, and then afterwards you can scale, but even then only focus on having few people. Okay, let's say 1 person in the marketing, 2 people on marketing, 1 person on design, and that's pretty much it. Okay, that's what you need to do. You do not need to have a lot of people. Generally how this works is that there is 1 person who builds the software. Okay, there is another person who markets it, and there is the 3rd person who is good at business, at talking. That's the 3 people that are required for the startup itself. All right, now let's move on to misconception number 3, and that is the age problem. A lot of people say that, okay, I cannot start a startup if I am in college, or people say that, okay, if I am 40 years old, I cannot start a startup. That is also not true. Now, this is quite controversial. There are some huge entrepreneurs who say that you should not start a startup in college. And then there are some people who say it is never too late, you can start whenever you want to. And there are examples to prove both of them correct. Okay, it depends on you. If you believe that idea is worth going after for, then you should definitely go ahead and start a venture in your college itself. Now, you can take a look at Ben Graham's blog, in which he says that you should not start a startup in college. That is really insightful, and just decide for yourself, what do you think about it? I don't think there is going to be any problem. If you have the skills, if you think you have knowledge about this industry, if you know that you can do some great work over here, then you should definitely go ahead with it and start as soon as possible. The most important part that I have realized so far that you need to focus on in a startup is called as product market fit. Okay, product market fit. Is your product meant for this particular market? Is it the right product for the market? Is this the right market for your product? Okay, and something even important is going to be founder product market fit. That is also really important, that you should definitely focus on. If you are not the right founder, if you do not have the core competency to go ahead with this venture, then you should really not get into it. Okay, just keep this one thing in mind. Okay, let's move on to the next part, and that could just be the startup idea. Okay, the most common asked question is, idea kya hoga? What should the idea be, right? So let's talk about this for a minute. You want to make something that would help people increase their efficiency, basically, right? Now, this can be for businesses, this can be for normal consumers, normal people as well. How this works is that you need to find some service. Let's take an example of Uber, right? So before Uber, people had a horrible experience with taxis and all, right? And then when Uber came along, everything became a lot easier for them, right? So whenever you make something easier for people, you end up making value for them as well as for your own self, right? That is what Kunal Shah talks in his video on YouTube called as finding a pot of gold. I think that's what it is called, but it's an amazing concept that he has that is called as delta E. Okay, so basically whenever there is a delta E of more than 4, you end up making some huge amount of value for the consumer as well as for yourself. Take a look at that video. I will not be going into depth about that, but just take a look at that, link in description if you are curious. A lot of times if you want to test if your startup idea is good, you need to ask people who are strangers who don't really know you, and you need to ask 100 people about it. Okay, just go on LinkedIn, go out there and just ask to people, hey, this is the idea, would you like to add some feedback, would you like to buy this product that I'm creating? And they will give you the most crude, honest answer, okay, without any like sugarcoating it or something like that. They will give you the best answer that you need to get. Okay, that's really important, because a lot of times people create startups that no one really wants to use, the products that no one really wants to use, right? You should never want to be in that position. An example of that can be Quibi. Okay, Quibi was a huge startup disaster that happened, in which they were creating vertical form short content like movies but shorter. It didn't really work out, okay, because I don't know, people really didn't want to use something like that. So that's what you need to focus on. You need to focus on finding things that people actually want to use. Okay, like they already had Netflix and they could already just make it like landscape and they can watch the complete movie. It's not like a big deal for them. Okay, now let's talk about a few qualities that you need to have if you are a founder. First, the most important is going to be that you will be losing all the time. You need to accept that you will be losing for the most part. You will get to hear a lot of no's or rejections all the time when you are starting out. That is completely fine. Okay, you should be okay with that. You should be okay with 100 people saying no on your face. That's really important. Entrepreneurship and being a founder is really, really hard. Okay, you need to accept that fact. You might be hearing startups with crazy valuations and startup founders in videos and all. It looks really good. It looks all sunshine and rainbows, but at the end it's really, really hard. I watched this amazing video it was a conversation actually between Kunal Shah and Gojek's founder, in which they're talking about the philosophy of a startup founder, what are the problems that they go through. You can take a look at that also if you're interested. Moving on to the next part, let's talk about a few YouTubers that you can follow to learn about this a little bit more. Okay, now let's talk about the first one, and this would be startup accelerator called as YCombinator. They have a YouTube channel on which they upload some really insightful and helpful content. There you will find people who have raised millions of dollars. They have made some amazing companies. They have provided value to their customers, and they are sharing their own experience about all the different topics, right? What are your key performance indicators? What is MRR, ARR? All of that they are talking about. How can you increase that? What should you be focusing on? Growth or retention? A lot of topics are over there. You can take a look at those videos. Make notes as much as you can. That is really important when you're listening to these people. And they talk about marketing, landing pages, everything. They are talking in those videos. There is also a series called as How to Start a Startup by YCombinator itself, in which the top founders are there to give you advice on everything. Startup idea, how to hire good people, how to market your product, how to handle sales. A lot of these things are covered over there. DoorDash founder was over there. Teespring's founder was over there. Pretty much the best founders are over there. So if you're interested, you can take a look at that playlist itself. Amazing conversations. I just really had a lot of fun by listening to them. And after this, you can also take a look at Garry Tan. Okay, he used to be a YCombinator partner, but right now he started his own venture firm called as Initialized Capital, and he also has a channel in which he shares some amazing insights about startups. Basically, if you're like a startup founder, you should definitely consider watching these videos, and you'll get to learn a lot from that. Okay, he covers a lot of topics and he's still making some amazing videos, so huge shout out to him. Link in description to all of these resources, by the way. Okay, with that said, let's move on to the next part, and that would be Slidebean. Okay, Slidebean is also a great channel that I personally watch a lot of videos from, in which they break down some of the biggest startups out there, how they succeeded, how they failed, what is happening in the startup ecosystem, what is funding, basically all the topics in startups they have covered. If you want to get up to date with the news in startup ecosystem, you can take a look at Backstage with Millionaires. They talk about all of the latest news, which company got funded, what happened to a particular startup in India particularly. Startupgyaan is also a great channel by Arnab Nayak, in which he just shares everything, but in Hindi, right? So if you are curious and want to get news in Hindi, you can take a look at his channel as well. I really enjoy his way of explaining everything. And if you want to, listen from amazing founders on like interviews and stuff, you can take a look at This Week in Startups. It is a YouTube channel. Over there you have Jason, who will be covering the overall worldwide news of startups, and he also does a lot of interviews with other people. All right, that is really good. Now there are some other YouTube channels as well that I watch a lot. I will be linking them in the description. If you're curious, go take a look at that. Talking about the blogs, so you can take a look at Mark Andreessen's blogs, you can take a look at Ben Graham's blogs. If you're interested, again, link would be in the description. These are people that have a lot of experience and they are sharing all of that with you. Okay, they have years of experience. Now moving on to the next part, and that would be some books that you can read. So the best book that I would recommend to you is going to be The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Okay, amazing book. They talk about, Ben Horowitz talks about his own journey into startups in 2001, bubble, the .com bubble that burst out, and amazing book. You should take a look at that. Talks about the real hard problems that startup entrepreneurs face. Moving on, the next one would be 0 to 1. Definitely amazing book by Peter Thiel, who's also a really renowned figure in the venture ecosystem and all. And then you have Lean Startup. Okay, that is a great book. Then you have Before You Startup is also a great book that I've read. Then 48-Hour Startup. Amazing book. It is a quick read, but it goes into depth talking about how can you reiterate as quick as possible. Get feedback, reiterate, get feedback, reiterate, and get to that sweet spot in which people will really want to use your products. And then obviously you can read books like Elon Musk and his biography, Steve Jobs book, and then Jack Ma's book. You have some other books as well. I'll be linking some amazing books in the description. If you're interested, take a look at that. But yeah, these are some great books that you can read and you can get to learn about the experiences, the journeys of these startup founders. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight is also an amazing book, talks about the journey of Nike. Really enjoyed that book. And let's move on to the next part, and that would be some entrepreneurs that I personally like to follow, and you can also follow them if you're interested. The first one would be Naval Ravikant. Okay, he is the founder of AngelList. He has an amazing Twitter that you can take a look at. I made an entire video on Naval Ravikant. Second one can be Noah Kagan. I really like taking a look at his YouTube videos where he breaks everything down, talks about how businesses actually work, how the top businessmen, the top CEOs operate, and how do they generate their revenue. Third would be Kunal Shah. He has some great insights about India itself and the Indian economy, how people think in India. So take a look at his videos on YouTube, his Twitter, his LinkedIn, all of that is just amazing. Then the fourth one would be, I think, Ankur Warikoo. I recently started following him on his YouTube channel. He makes some amazing content for a wide audience, and basically he was the founder of nearby.com, and he has done an amazing job of building a brand of himself, right? So take a look at him and his content if you're interested. His Twitter tweets are just amazing and you'll get to learn a lot from that. Then we have some other people like Gary Vaynerchuk, definitely a huge motivation for me to start my own YouTube channel, and he does an amazing job of just talking about the mindset of an entrepreneur. Okay, and yeah, that is one person you can take a look at. But yeah, I would just say that learn from all of them, but don't get into the cycle of constantly consuming them all the time. Learn from them, make notes, and then start your own venture. And you'll fail a bunch of times, you'll learn and you'll get back up, fail, learn, get back up. Don't get into the vicious cycle of just consuming. Don't do that. It's good for no one. Okay, but yeah, that was just a few points that I wanted to cover in this video. Podcast, if you want to listen, some great ones is going to be How I Build This by Guy Raz. This podcast that you can see over here by Gimlet Media, in which the founder is just talking about how they started Gimlet Media itself. That's also a great one that talks about like the actual documentation of the events that happened over there when he was starting his own startup. Then, you know, we have some other ones as well. There is one that I really like that is called as Business Wars, that talks about how two businesses compete with each other, what are the strategies that they use, what are the tactics that they use. Amazing, podcast by Fundry Media. Okay, next would be Masters of Scale, as you can see over here. This is a great podcast started by the founders of LinkedIn. And just keep listening to as many podcasts as possible. Educate yourself and then get out there. Ask help from people. Don't just be like, "Arey startup start karte hain, uncle." Ya fir don't be like vague in whatever you're asking. Be specific, and people would really help you out a lot. Okay, that's what I would say. These were a few people that I want you to take a look at. This is how you understand about startups. This is how you approach startups. I hope this video was insightful for all of you. Make sure that you hit the like button and also share this video with your friends. It takes a lot of time for me to make these videos. It would be really worth it if you can, just let me know in the comments if you enjoy it or not. If you want me to make more videos on startups, let me know what topic should I be covering. I really enjoy just talking about startups and just like the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and all. Thank you for watching. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.